Great, we're back for part two, continuing our our lunch with Layne. Part two, thank you. Kawaii. Part two here, our legal lunch with Layne, and we're going through the various things. Hardships was the next question, Peg. Specifically, and I don't mean this to be a loaded question, but as a female, have there been any times or hardships that you've encountered that you'd be willing to share with our students?
Yeah, I've been very fortunate to have wonderful men in my life who get it and understand that when we're in a room, if the conversation shifts toward the man, that they'll direct it back to me. My
In Layne?
partner,
Um,
would I ever say that to you? No,
oh,
no. Would
no.
you ever do
Okay.
that? I hope not. And if not, we're gonna fix it. We're gonna fix
Okay. No, I would never in a
it.
million
No,
years.
I
You
don't.
said wonderful, wonderful men in your life, and Peg, I
You
was
are one
trying
of the
to,
most
yeah.
equal-minded people I know, and you are on a pedestal to me. And I know you would never do this, but I think especially with older clients, some of them just naturally gravitate toward men. And even though my partner Ron is older than me, I've got 10 years of seniority on him because he law school was like a third career for him. He was a reporter for the Palm Beach Post, then he did real estate, then he went to law school. So some people I think look to him, and when that happens, he's very good about directing the conversation back to me. So I haven't faced that kind of discrimination, but I cannot tell you how many times I've been mistaken for a court reporter, for a paralegal, for an assistant. I
Wow.
spent 45 minutes on the phone with a new client who called in, had a complicated case. I told him about the strategy we could use, about the options we had, made some recommendations, gave him some case law. I said, "Oh, that sounds great. All right, so when can I talk to a lawyer?" And it's that kind of thing that makes you think, well, dude, this is 2021. Are we still in this day and age? I said, you are speaking to the lawyer, you're speaking to the owner of the firm. Oh. But it's little moments like that that wake people
Yeah.
up. But you have to handle it with gentleness and humor. You can't get offended, because it doesn't do you any good. And sometimes it's ignorance of the older generation. When
Yeah.
you hear the word physician, you think a man. If you're architect, you think man. If you hear caregiver, you think woman. So I never get nasty because it doesn't educate. I do it with a little bit of humor and say, you're speaking to a lawyer. It's me. I'm a girl, but I'm a lawyer, and I'm a good one too. Just trust me. And so I've been able to get through it that way, but I've never experienced outright discrimination or harassment. Part of that is because we live in Gainesville, which is a small community, and we really do practice in la la land. When I talk to lawyers from other circuits, they're shocked at hearing our experiences. We're so collegial. We talk to each other. We have good
I
relationships
do
with
hear
the
that,
class.
Peg.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's unbelievable. You wouldn't get that same experience in Jacksonville or in Miami. So I really have been blessed not to have any bad experiences.
One of the things that I've always regretted over the years, we've never been on opposing sides, Peg.
We have
Maybe that's
not,
a
but
good.
I could sue you and then we could be on opposing sides. How about that?
You could, yeah,
That'd be
and
cool. And then
you're
you
gonna
could
have some material.
counterclaim against me, and then we'd have multiple counts in the same suit. We could go to court together.
That's true. Yeah, because judges love having two attorneys suing each other in court, right? That's their favorite cases, right? To have. Um, Going back, yeah, interesting matters. I know you've had so many cases. Some we can talk about, many we can't. Is there any that you can share with us? Some interesting matters that you've handled, an interesting case, maybe?
Um, it's funny being a law clerk because you see a lot of stuff that you can't respond to. We're just sitting there, we're taking notes, we're advising the judge, we're doing research. And I've seen a bunch of stuff. I've seen the deputy courtroom clerk sitting in front of me. I had given her a piece of chocolate during a trial, and she put it down on the computer tower, and it started melting. And I could see it and couldn't tell her because we're in the middle of the trial, and she went to reach for it and put it in her mouth and didn't realize it was melted. So it was all over her face and her hands and the pencil. um, the other story that sticks out was a sexual harassment case. And a woman in Tallahassee was claiming that she was working in an office, and the men were terrible to her and calling her all sorts of names and blah, blah, blah. And sitting there listening, and the defense gets up and they put on a guy who worked there, one of her coworkers, and they asked him about her claims. And he said, nah, she was kind of the instigator of this harassment. She partook of it just as much, give as good as you get. And the lawyer said, well, tell me about that. He said that this lady around Christmas time had donned a sweatshirt with, I guess you call them an elk, a male deer. I don't know. I'm from Queens. I don't know. What do you call a boy deer? An elk, a moose, whatever, a male deer with antlers.
Okay.
And she ran around to everybody with her sweatshirt and said, check out my rack. What do you think of my rack, everybody? And I looked at Judge Mickle and he just kind of hung his head because all of us were like, that case just went down in the
Right.
toilet.
Instantly. Right.
Instantly, the
And
jury was like, nah, we're done here. That's all we needed to hear.
would you say, I know probably not a proper use, did it literally just die in court?
That is not a proper use, Layne. When we get to
Okay.
pet peeves, I'll tell you about that. Literally,
Okay.
actually, and it didn't actually die because there were no deaths that occurred in the courtroom. Metaphorically, the case did die.
Figuratively.
Metaphorically, it went up in flames and exploded.
Got it. Got it. Okay. Absolutely. And so pet peeves would be the use of literally, right? When something literally did not happen, but more metaphorically or figuratively, right?
You got it.
Gotcha.
Yes.
Okay. And your other legal pet peeve, what is it? Pretentious interviewers?
What could that be? No. And you are the least pretentious person I know. No, seriously, my
Wow,
pet peeve
okay.
is grammar, not only because I've been a grammar geek all my life. Pet peeves are grammar and wardrobe, and here's why. I've always been a grammar geek, but having spent 9 years in the court system researching and writing, I understand that we make our living with words as lawyers.
Yes.
And we can make or break a case by how we write. And when you show the judge your attention to detail by making sure all your citations are spot on, and you know that there is a space between Southern and Second, that you have looked at Rule 9800, that you have looked at the Blue Book, that you know how to use your words, that shows that you have a level of credibility because you put diligence and integrity into your work. But as a law clerk, if I read something that's sloppy or inaccurate, my recommendation to the judge is going to be, watch this case, watch this lawyer. As a lawyer, you don't know what's going on in chambers. And having had the benefit of 9 years of being behind the scenes, I can tell you that words matter, proofreading matters, page numbering matters. It sounds like details, and a lot of lawyers go, what matters is the message, but how that message is conveyed is crucial. And if you don't do it right, you're going to lose your credibility. So the grammar geek we all joke about, but it is very important because that's how you make your story snap with good words, accurate words, good spelling. The other pet peeve, and literally, by the way, for anybody who doesn't know, literally is morphing into metaphorically, but literally really means actual, literal, the written word. So if you say, I'm literally dying, that's not true because you're not dying. You're not on your deathbed. You are metaphorically dying. But I digress. The wardrobe pet peeve is this, and this goes back to your question about gender differences. Women are judged on how they dress. Men are not. You guys have it easy. You could wear the same suit in trial for a week, change up your shirt and tie. You're golden. Nobody's paying attention to you. When a woman gets up there, look at those heels. Those heels are way too high. What's she wearing? Hooker heels? Look at that skirt. That skirt is too high. Look at that, too cleavage. It's too bright. It's too flowery. It's too whatever. Her glasses are too bold, too much jewelry, too much makeup. The hair is whatever. Women are judged on how they dress. Think about O.J. Simpson and Marsha, whatever her face was, with the red suit. Clark. I thought it was Clark, but I don't want to say it. Marsha Clark. Think about Hillary Clinton and all the joking about pantsuits. We're judged on how we deliver the message, not the message that's coming out of our mouth. So when I talk to young women, whether they're undergrad or law students, I always talk to them about wardrobe and tell them, you may think that it sounds too conservative or too fuddy-duddy, but let go of the need to be fashionable. Because what I always tell women is, if you have to pull down your skirt when you get up and shimmy it down, it's too short. If you have to put your hand here when you bend over to pick up a pencil, you need to adjust your hemline, because if the jury's seeing that, then they're not paying attention to what you're saying. If your heels are too high and you're wobbling when you get up to the middle of the courtroom to deliver your closing, what are they thinking about? They're not thinking about the case. They're not thinking about the dramatic information you're going to give to them. They're thinking about your shoes. So for women, we just have to be extra careful. And I always tell them, don't detract from your message. Don't give them anything to look at, to criticize. Be conservative. Don't try to stand out from the crowd, because you're not going to stand out in a good way. And I think I can say that and get away with it because I've experienced it and I'm a woman.
Right, right.
So that's probably one of the most important pieces of advice I could dole out to your kids is dress for success, not to be noticed.
Would you recommend the standard gray conservative suit, both men and women?
No. And I'm
Okay.
glad you asked that, because a lot of people, like prosecutors, you always see them in navy blue
Yeah,
with a white. You don't have to wear a uniform. Conservative doesn't mean dark tired colors. You could do a tan suit. You could do charcoal. You could do light gray. A woman can wear a burgundy suit. But what I'm talking about is, for women, jewelry. A lot of times, if you have a statement piece or too many statement pieces, if you have even earrings that are dangling and every time you move they're flashing, it distracts the brain. It's a visual distraction, you know.
no, I think that's great advice. Real quick, I just wanted to ask you, it's also know your courtroom and your juries, right? Not just the judges, but know the courtroom. We've seen some of the attorneys, right, from the bigger cities that come in and they're wearing more, what should I say, shinier clothes,
Oh yeah, and the
flashy,
French cuffs, yes, and
the
all
French
this.
cuffs. And there you go, the French cuffs, which I mean, certainly probably works where they're at, right? And
Right.
has a degree of gravitas. But up here, it's a little alien, would you say, to us?
Very,
Um,
very much. And here's the thing, not only the
yeah.
wardrobe, but the personality. I had a lawyer from Miami call and ask me to be local counsel in a sexual battery case. And I went with her to the prosecutor's office to talk about the case. And she was Long Island, Miami. Um, and it wasn't toned down. And it just threw the prosecutor for a loop, because she was very argumentative and antagonistic. And down in Miami, it flies. I mean, that's how they interact. I've talked to West Palm attorneys, to Miami attorneys,
Yeah.
and they're at
Yeah.
each other's throats. Up here, that's a complete turnoff. So I found myself being the go-between between her and the prosecutor, because they're used to dealing with a Gainesville person. Hey, we're looking forward to working together. See, we've
Yeah.
got case management coming up in a couple of weeks. Can we just talk? Can I come see you? Instead of my client, this, that, and you need to blah, blah, blah. Because the prosecutor was like, hey, you need to watch who you're dealing with. So the message is important too. And you do need to know your audience. If it's a prosecutor who's laid back, who's used to a more collaborative approach, don't go in there with all guns blazing. It's going to turn them off. If you go in there to a prosecutor who is about facts and figures and rehab, and you want to show them, I have my client in counseling, I've got an evaluation done, we've got a path for him to get back on track, you need to know who you're dealing with and prepare.
Yeah. Thank you, Peg. Yeah. One of the things I've noticed with you in court is not a wasted word, I feel like. When you're up there at the podium, you work really hard and it's planned. Like you said, the Judge Mickle lessons, you learned very, very well. Be prepared. Inspirations. I got to ask you about it. We're getting into the more fun questions now, but I think hopefully enlightening for our students. Do you have any special inspirations, things or people that have inspired you over the years you'd like to share?
I will tell you about Judge Stan Morris, who you know.
Okay. Yes. Yes. Oh, I know Judge Morris very well.
Yes.
Admire. Yes.
Oh, I do.
Also an idol. Yes.
He is. I mean, he really is. He's a legal lion, and he's been
Yes.
like a second dad to me. I volunteered for him. I first got to know him when he was teaching my trial practice class. And he's like 6'5", tall guy, very serious. So we're all messing around. This was in 283 in the old horseshoe room before they rebuilt the law school.
Yeah.
The door opens and he walks in, and he had such a commanding presence. We all just stopped and looked at him. We looked at him and never made eye contact with us. He went to the front, he sat down, he started looking, he says, all right, who's ready to do direct? How about Miss O'Connor? Me? Okay, yes, sir. And that was my first experience with him. He told me later he chose me because he wanted, I had been on moot court in law school, and he wanted somebody who at least had the comfort of getting up there, because he didn't want to pick on somebody and make them feel bad, which I thought was so thoughtful of him, not to get up there and pick on somebody who was shaking, to make them feel bad. He just, somebody who was going to at least get up there and be thick skinned. And if they screwed it up, fine. I fell in love with him that instant. So this summer that I was supposed to be working on my master's thesis, I didn't. I went to the courthouse every day and I followed him around like a puppy. I was like, where are you going to court? I'm going with you. You're going to chambers? I'm going with you. You want to research? I'm going to do it. And I totally flaked off on my thesis and just lived essentially at the courthouse. And he set me up in a little office in the back of chambers, and he would come in and he'd sit down in this big squishy chair, kick off his shoes, and just talk to me like I was an equal. He would brainstorm with me, and it elevated my thinking. He didn't treat me as just a law clerk or a law student. He treated me as somebody who could contribute to the conversation. He taught me so much. This man carried around 2 phones at the courthouse because he wanted to keep his personal calls separate from his work phone so the state of Florida would not be charged for his minutes. That if I could be him when I grow up, I would be the happiest girl on earth. He's a phenomenal human being. And
Yeah,
Larry, too. I mean, Larry's one of my
yes.
idols. I learned from that generation.
I wanted to share, I probably had one of the toughest experiences with Judge Morris back in the day. And it was, very, very tough, a point where we were in the middle of trial, and things, let me just say, did not go as well as we had planned. Peg, this would never happen in trial, right? It was Dean and I, and Dean Galligani and I back in the day. And he was, I had approached the judge and said, would it be too late to enter a plea at this point in time? And he was like, no, of course not, Mr. Preborg. I kind of suspected, that I was going to have him completely gracious, allowed us enough time to put it together, and it was really had a huge heart, and took everything on this particular case, at that time, but really was able to, when a case doesn't go the way that you had hoped, right, was able to help us get the ship to safely to port. And
Yeah.
with the jury and everybody, right, where everything was done, he was a master at that. Judge Turner too, just brilliant. The only issue I have with Judge Turner, I know he's probably going to watch this, later on, was that he put everybody back on probation. Had a huge heart, but put everybody on probation. I I really wanted to succeed, this time. Oh, Judge, prosecutor and I are talking. It's the 7th time, and we have hope for everyone. But, even my defendant is saying just some straight time. Let's
Hope
finish.
springs eternal.
Eternal,
Hope springs
absolutely.
eternal.
Absolutely.
And I learned that from him, Layne. Here's the thing.
Okay,
Judge
yeah.
Morris was my judicial idol. When I went into private practice, Larry became my legal idol, because it wasn't until I got here that I realized there are human beings behind these cases. When I was in federal court, we would sentence people to life on a regular basis, 360 months, 240 months. And at some point, it's just numbers. It doesn't mean anything. It wasn't until I began practice with Larry and got to meet the clients that I saw, wow, there's a human being with a story and with foibles and frailties behind it. So I never thought I would see myself as a defense lawyer. I envisioned myself as a prosecutor, because I walked in going, well, yeah, we wouldn't be here unless he'd done something wrong and he sucks and he should get the chair. And Larry completely changed my mode of thinking. And I love what I do, because we're trying to help to heal people. And Larry's so good at that. He's got such a big heart. So I learned from the masters. And Larry always taught me, when you get the information, which is the formal charging document in the case, you read every single word, you pull out your statute book, because back in the day there were books, and you look and you make sure that every word of that information tracks the statute, because if it doesn't, then you have an issue. And when you look at a search warrant, you drive the directions to that house, because a search warrant has to say, go a quarter mile here. You drive it, because if it doesn't end up in the location where it says, you've got an issue. So from him, I learned the importance of details, microscopic details, that I think not a lot of other lawyers would pay attention to. And it can make or break a case. You can win a case that way sometimes. So never overlook a detail, no matter how microscopic you think it is.
You've always been the best versed, I know, of everybody that I know and practice with, and again, the individuals that you're working with, I still say Judge Turner, Larry,
Everybody
right?
does.
Everybody does. Yeah. It's hard to get out of the system, right?
And he'll never correct you. He'll never correct you.
Okay. I'll continue. I'm using it. Thank you. Special advice for our students. I know you've given us a lot of advice already. Is there anything more that you'd like to add?
More advice. I would probably say you have to find what makes you happy. By that, I mean, if you want to go to law school, go with an open mind, first of all, because even though when I went to law school, I knew that I wanted to do criminal law, I still had to take contracts, I had to take constitutional law, I had to take property, and I still learned a lot. I opened my mind, I learned how to read a contract, I learned about the difference between springing and shifting executory interest in real estate. And even though I don't use it, it was still edifying to learn about it. Don't be discouraged if you don't know what you want to do. I think I can say that from personal experience, because I've already told you, I didn't think I was going to graduate from high school, had no idea what I was going to do. In undergrad, I had no idea what I was going to do afterward. And even when I graduated law school, I had no idea what I was going to do with it, but I found it, and they can find it too. So my message for your kids is find something that makes you happy. If you can get up every day and be excited about going to work and be excited about the people you're doing it with, then you have hit the mother lode. But give yourself some grace. You don't have to know right now that you're going to do corporate law until you retire. Even if you start out in family law and hate it, you can switch. It is never too late. So many lawyers have made a second career or just changed completely and pivoted to another area of law. So once you have your degree in hand, you can do whatever you want to with it. Just be patient, shadow as many people as you can, get as much exposure as you can. And once you find something you like, go for it.
That's fantastic advice. Gosh, we're getting into the fun, easy questions now. Favorite music?
I know you're going to think I'm going to say Prince. I know you're going to think that, and that is true.
I would never think that, Peg. No.
You know that I live and breathe purple.
Wonderful purple performer.
Yes, yes. But what you probably don't know about me is I'm a bass head. I have two 12-inch subwoofers in the back of my car, and a huge stereo and speakers all around, because I love bass nectar. I love future primitive. I love what's called, I guess, sci-dub. I've heard it called sci-dub. I don't know any other word for it. Just bass just does something to me. I love feeling your heart like pound and resonate with it, and it vibrates.
Yeah.
So when I have it set up, my seats vibrate. It's like a built-in massager. It's great. The louder, the better.
Am I going to see Peg at an all-night rave?
Totally.
Or I was going to say maybe not an all-night, all week.
Come take you in Marshmallow in the car to a rave.
When I get my second vaccination's coming right up, Peg, and I'm encouraging everybody out there. Absolutely. I want to do the all-night rave with you. Absolutely. Thank you for sharing that. No, I did not know that about you. Now when I hear, when the car comes by, my house, I'm going to go, damn Peg. Okay. Yeah. I love all, this. I love all music. Favorite film?
Office Space is the best movie.
That is a great movie. That is a great movie.
I know every line of that movie, and plus Eddie Murphy, raw and delirious. I can probably rattle off every line from all three of those movies.
But PG rated, probably. Yeah.
That's why I'm not going to do it for you right now. I know it, but I know
absolutely. That's what we grew up with, Peg. I'm so glad to hear that. Office Space.
I'm a fan of Beavis and Butthead too. I know that was early '90s, but they made me laugh.
Yeah, I should tease up my hair. Would that be good?
I think you should do that, and I think you should put on an AC/DC shirt and sit in front of the TV and go. Yeah.
I had no idea you were that talented, right? You and I are.
I put on my grown-up face when I come to work, but yeah, at heart, I'm a 13-year-old boy.
That's great. All of our friends are going to get this reference, and I'm going to have to explain it to my students, right?
Yes.
On it. What was it? Frog baseball, all of those wonderful memories.
The original.
You're a fan of King of the Hill too, right? I'm sure.
Oh yeah.
Later on. Okay.
Yep,
yeah.
Of course. Yeah. www.com. Click.
I always get confused. It's not Michael Apted. He's the one that did the 7+.
Mike Judge.
Mike Judge. Thank you.
Mike Judge. He made a cameo appearance in Office Space as Stan. The scene at a Tchotchkes or Flingers or wherever it was where Jennifer Aniston was working. He's the boss. The one that says 37 pieces of flair. Because some people need to do more, and we encourage that. Don't you want to express yourself? That's Mike Judge.
Wow, what an underrated masterpiece, I think there.
Yeah,
I'm so glad you brought that up. Office Space. I'm gonna have to include like a link to the trailer in the in your
do.
write-up here. Um, you and I have talked about everything across the board here.
Everything,
A spirit animal, bird. I got it.
literally, not literally, literally, figuratively, everything. I said literally just to be difficult, but figuratively, everything we have talked about.
I know, I know. So figuratively, is that a good way to say it?
Yes,
Figuratively. Have I got it? Okay. Down here. Yeah, absolutely.
just like
Um,
that with the two fingers,
with the
figuratively.
two fingers, figuratively. Okay, I got this. Okay, great, great. Um, we're gonna get sued, I know, by NBC at some point here. Peg,
I'll
right?
I'll draft a disclaimer. It'll be fine.
We'll be fine as long as it's educational, which it is, right?
Yes.
You know, on these
Yes.
things here.
Kids are
Um,
learning, are they not? I'm sure they're being edified at this very moment.
they are learning.
Learning.
Any last words of wisdom, deathbed, closing thoughts here, Peg? Not to put any pressure on you. Um,
Figuratively on my deathbed. Uh,
figuratively on your deathbed.
Figuratively.
Yes, that's
I
exactly
would
right.
say work hard. I know this is going to sound very cliche, but at some point, 10 or 20 years from now, you will look back and say, I never thought I would see myself in this place. When you get discouraged and when you think, I can't take another class, I can't take another final, I can't do this, just think about where you want to be sitting in your chair, in your office, owning your firm, being at the state attorney's office, being a judge, and think about how you want to feel when you're in that place and work backwards. That is what is going to give you the motivation to keep cranking and get to that place someday. You can do it.
Oh, hey, when did it get you on the bench?
Dude, don't get me started. I used to
Okay.
think I wanted to be a Supreme Court justice. When I met
Oh,
Judge Morris's judicial assistant,
incredible.
she asked me
Yeah.
what kind of law I wanted to practice, and I, like a dumbass, said, I'm going to be Chief Justice of the Supreme Court. And of course, she was like, all right, whatever. And then having having seen the process, the election process and the appointment process, I realized it's not of interest to me. Um, and here's the last thing I'll tell you.
Okay.
That's one of the reasons that Larry stepped down from the bench. He said, being a judge is very isolating. You have to watch who you have to be friends with. You can't go to lunch with your defense attorney friends because then people see you, oh, what's that about? And you go to lunch or dinner with your state attorney, oh, what's that about? So you're by yourself. He used to say when he was a defense attorney, he could go for a run and then go to Publix in his sweaty workout clothes. But as a judge, go home, shower, put on your creased pants, your polo. You have to look appropriate all the time.
Oh,
You're
yeah.
always under a microscope. And and he felt constrained by some of the stupid ass laws that we have. And having banged my head against the brick wall for years as a defense attorney, I think I would have a hard time being a judge and having to enforce those laws that I think are dumb. I think mandatory minimums are ridiculous. I think a lot of the drug related laws we have, they're stupid. But as a judge, you're constrained by them. And that's one of the
Right.
reasons he left. So knowing what I know now about what judges really go through, I think that's a hard life. I think that's a hard life because, as I said, you're always under a microscope. People are always criticizing. You don't have privacy. You don't have freedom to do what you want. It just seems more fun, as Larry would say, to be on the outside of the glass house, throwing stones on the inside at the legislature and everybody else passing stupid laws. So it's a lot more fun being a defense attorney, I think.
Wow. It's like being in the royal family. I,
Yeah, it is. I think
it is. Yeah.
it is.
No, thank you for that, Peg. So many words of wisdom. Gosh, now you got me wanting to do a part three. Someday, in the
We can
future,
do it.
we can do it. We can do it. We will definitely. Yeah, gosh, here I'm going to make another promise, right? Layne is known for making promises that he doesn't keep, right? We're going to call it an aspiration, so I don't feel that bad about it. But we're going to get you back, Peg. Absolutely. You're going to be on the short list here. Okay. I'll
Awesome.
put you at the top of the short list next
I
time.
like it.
Peg, you are truly my legal idol, an amazing individual. You give so much to our community, pro bono service. You give so much to your clients. You've helped our students immensely over the years. All of us, your advice is appreciated. I'm going to implement some of it here. And, yeah, um, thank you so much. Gosh, and Peg, can't thank you enough. You take
I
care.
enjoy being here. We will do it again. Promise.